know from past interviews that you grew up in the West End.
Yes, correct.
And that's where you were in 1937?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Bank Street and Dayton Street. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bank and Dayton.
Mm-hmm. I lived on both. I lived with my mother on Dayton, but I spent most of my time on Bank with my grandparents.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, it's that dangerous question. What year were you born? Let me ask it this way. How old were you in 37?
Let's put it this way. I'm 80 plus.
So, okay. 80 plus.
80 plus.
But old enough to remember.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in 1937, and floods weren't unusual in Cincinnati. So, when do you remember starting to actually be aware that there was a serious flood?
I think we were very aware because it just seemed like everything was, although in the beginning I thought it was very exciting. I really, of course, a child looks at things differently. I thought it was real exciting because I had never experienced anything like that. But a child has short attention span, and all of a sudden, after days and days, all of a sudden it wasn't exciting. It was very depressing. Very depressing. And even though I was a child, I just felt the depression because I think our whole life, our world was sort of changing. Cincinnati was changing. Things that we had taken for granted, even though not that we had all that much in those days, but for water, for instance, okay, you just assumed drinking water. Well, all of a sudden we didn't have water, and we had to. When it came around, we filled a bathtub and we filled any vessel we could find with water to boil, you see. And my aunt, though, she pulled a wagon up to what was called Red Top Brewery, and that was at Bank and probably Bank and Central, I think, the end of Bank Street, the east end part of Bank Street. And she would pull this wagon and take vessels, and she would get water there. And of course, that was spring water, see. So
You said they brought water around. How did water get to your house?
No, I don't recall that. I don't recall because I know my aunt, more or less, by going to the brewery, she brought us water back, but we had filled a tremendous amount, because then you had big old wash tubs. We filled wash tubs besides the bathtub, and somehow or other, I don't know, we seemed to manage. We boiled the water, of course.
Now, what about the water itself in your house? How did your house get flooded, or how close did it get?
No. We were probably a block and a half. I think probably the flood was down by a little bit west of Hurley School. Maybe Hurley School had water in the basement. I don't know. At that time, I was going to Bloom School. And, but I think even school was canceled. If I recall correctly, I'm not positive on this. I think school was canceled because Bloom School, I believe, was taking in a lot of displaced persons. So it seemed to me, I think school was canceled. And then, of course, my father and grandfather, their employment was down on Spring Grove Avenue, so they weren't able to work because it was flooded, totally flooded. So it just seemed like it changed our world. And then of course, we had no power. And the main enjoyment in those days was radio. You didn't have TV, you didn't have all the things you have today. We had radio, and that was what everyone enjoyed, gathered around to listen to. And then we didn't even have electric lights, much less radio. So we burned candles. But there again, it seems so eerie because you were so used to a neighborhood being vibrant, being well lit and everything, and all of a sudden it was total darkness. And it was very depressing.